Hello, everybody. Tracy, Mrs. JDog Flanagan here with you today. I would like to welcome you back to Tactical Treasures. Today, I am really excited. We have the pleasure of speaking with Chuck Eastman. Chuck is a 20-year Army veteran who served in the 75th Ranger Regiment, Joint Special Operations Command, and the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. His career in the Army began enlisted in the Rangers, then was hand-selected to conduct personal security for the JSOC commanding general. He later attended flight school to become an AH-64 Apache pilot and went on to assess and was selected to become an AH-6 Little Bird aviator in the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Chuck currently leads Stop Soldier Suicide's strategic partnership efforts. Welcome, Chuck. I'm so excited to have you today.
Thanks so much, Tracy. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Ah, awesome. So, Chuck, I would love to hear more about your role with Stop Soldier Suicide.
Sure. So I guess it helps to back up a little bit before I started at Stop Soldier Suicide. So when I retired from the Army, I started out doing business development for L3 Harris and found myself a little wanting for a little more purpose in what I was doing. So I reached out to a friend that connected me with one of the co-founders, and I talked to him for 5 minutes, and I was in. I was hooked. They didn't even have a job for me lined up. Just I stuck with them for about 6 months as they created a job, and that was to be the community affairs manager. Our hypothesis was, starting at a statewide level, creating a network across the state of North Carolina, and that was all great until my first day being March 1st. So it was all great in theory until about March 12th when we all packed up our computers and went home.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had to kind of be a little creative in my role and started doing more national outreach to other organizations that shared similar missions, interacted with veterans, or had technologies that we might be able to use. So I just became the director of strategic partnerships because I really work across the platform, work across the organization. I work in the work with the wellness center. I work with the marketing team. I work with the growth team. I work with special projects. It's just kind of I dabble in a little bit of everything.
Hmm, that's great. So I know our JDog Foundation is partnered with Stop Soldier Suicide. And can you just explain just a little bit about how Stop Soldier Suicide works?
Sure. And first of all, thank you very much to the JDog Foundation for your generous support.
Of course.
Um, as our CEO says, we set the vision and you set the pace. So our mission is to reduce veteran suicide to civilian parity by 2030, and we can only do that by growing at a certain pace, and we're growing rapidly. Yeah, so it works in a number of ways. So the first way is our Get Help form on stopsoldiersuicide.org. You can do a get help for yourself, and you fill out a couple demographic questions, phone number, and when's a good time to reach you, and we'll reach out to you within 24 business hours. The other is a third person party referral on the same page. So if a family or a spouse or loved one, and they click that get help, we'll contact them within 24 hours because based off of privacy laws, we can't proactively reach out to the veteran. So we can reach out to the family member, explain the next steps, how do we get consent, and then we have a 24/7 crisis line. So we all know that crisis doesn't come 9 to 5. So we have a 24/7 man line that even at night, if they submit a web form, they'll get a call within 15 minutes from the crisis support center to make sure they're doing okay, and then they'll triage from there.
Wow, that's great. We actually, I think, had an incident where somebody contacted us through the JDog Foundation. We have a support number on our website, and that number goes to James Caudle, who um, has taken a course, as I have too, to be able to recognize signs of suicide and what questions to ask and sort of how to um, bridge that gap a little bit. And he was able to work with this veteran and get him to fill out the form. And sure enough, within 20 minutes, somebody from SSS was contacting the veteran. So it was, I was amazed. I was like, wow, okay, this really does work. So
That's wonderful.
yeah, yeah,
That's
so
so good to
that's
hear.
good. Yeah. So, yeah, you guys are doing terrific work. It's really, really amazing. Um, so let's dive into your treasure. I'm really excited to hear about it.
Sure. So my treasure is to set goals and to pursue your passion. So when I was probably eighth grade, I knew that I wanted to fly. I wanted to fly F-16s, and that was my mark on the wall. And I was kind of an average student up to that point.
Mm,
Um, but when I set that goal, it started to line up everything else that I need to really to focus on to achieve that goal. Um, so I knew the end state, and then doing the military back planning process, I figured, okay, I got to do this, and then this, and then this. Um, and going to flight school for the Air Force didn't work. But I still stuck with my passion, and
mm,
that was flying. So I ended up enlisting in the Army. I was in the Ranger Regiment, and we were doing a night raid, and I saw the AH-6 come over a bump and shoot the breach. And I was like, that's what I want to do, because that looks cool. And it took 10 years from that point
wow.
to finally assess the 160th. But again, it was one of those, I set my goal. I wanted to fly little birds. I back planned from there. And once I got there, and once I was pursuing my passion, it was like every day was like a gift. There was never a day of work. Every day was really enjoyable. I mean, there'd be days like, granted, there were plenty of days that were like, why are we doing this? This is stupid. You know, being, 100 miles out over the ocean at 30 feet above the water with zero loom is not fun. But flying out to the range on a beautiful, warm, sunny day to go shoot and shoot all day, you're like, this is awesome. And I can't believe they pay me for this. So it's really that, kind of try to have an idea of where you want to go, how you want to get there, and just figure out what really makes you, what turns your crank, what makes you happy at the end of the day.
That's really, that's great advice. I truly believe that because when you thinking about it, when you do have a vision and you have a dream and you have something kind of mapped out, um, sometimes how you get there it can be very complicated and um,
Yeah,
can maybe make you want to quit. But as long as you keep focused on what that goal is, I think eventually you can make it happen and make yourself get there.
it really is a circuitous route that I took to get where I wanted. Like, people ask me about my career, and they're like, what? And then you did what? And why'd you go there? And it's just like end state, little birds.
Right,
Why would I have all these other things in front of it? Because I knew they all would eventually get me to that point.
right,
Some
right.
people said, why'd you fly Apaches? Because you're not going to get the night vision goggle time. Well, I ended up flying for 15 months in Iraq with Apaches, and I got plenty of goggle time. I got more than the average Apache guy because, I flew with goggles primarily because you can't see tracers under FLIR on the
Right.
Apache. So I wore goggles so you can see tracers.
Mm,
So it worked out.
yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So, um, what would you like to say to veterans in the military community that what would you hope that they would take away from your treasure or advice?
Oh, there's so many opportunities there. First is, don't set goals too low.
Mm,
Like, if your goals don't scare you, they're probably not high enough. If they don't, like, if you and Jerry at one point said, I'm going to make this veteran owned business and it's going to crush it. There are probably days that you and Jerry are like, this is not a lot of fun. And then just look where you're at now. It's, massive amounts of success. Um, and that's really where, setting goals, setting lofty goals. There's that old saying, if you shoot for the stars and you land short, you're still in the stars. So just set high goals and high expectations. And then for my current state, for where I'm working with Stop Soldier Suicide, my only advice would be, everybody's heard the saying, it's okay to not be okay, really, to a point where it's almost too much. But to understand that Many people have been exposed to trauma throughout their life. It's not just from military trauma. It could be from childhood trauma. It could be from MST. It could be trauma from combat. But trauma affects you physically. It physically changes your brain. And, like the military does a really good job at teaching how to put a tourniquet in your buddy or to give an IV and to help those physical wounds, but they haven't focused enough on the reality that trauma creates physical wounds, and we need to help each other, and we need to be open for help. If you need to get help and you identify it early, it's like you're bleeding a little bit, put a Band-Aid on it. You're good for later. If you're bleeding a lot, you need to get a lot of help. That's okay to get help. There are resources out there. There are units. If you're active duty, there's behavioral health clinics, but there's stigma associated with. They might report back the chain of command, or they might lose their clearance, which is not true. But Stop Soldier Suicide, we offer. It's 100% confidential, 100% free, never gets reported back to chain of command, and we're there with them for the long haul. It's on average 8.5 months, 8.6 months to be exact, for how long our clients stick with us. But we've had clients we've had for 2 years. We really stay with you for as long as we need. And then for the active duty crowd, behavioral health is a challenge because suicidality is episodic. It comes and goes. So if you go to one behavioral health clinic and then you PCS to a new unit, well, you're kind of resetting from square one. You got a brand new behavioral health team. You got to tell your story over again. You're reintroducing that trauma. So no matter where you live, no matter where you go, we can stick with you, and we're available to you 24/7. So I guess that'd be the only advice and takeaway.
Yeah, that's really great. And I've heard that a lot of veterans just will not call the VA hotline. And I think it's because they just the red tape and they get bounced around from person to person. And every time they get bounced around, they have to tell the story again. So that,
You would have no idea how many times we hear that story of some of the problems with the Veterans Crisis Line. And they're trying to fix it. They're trying to fix some of the VAs, but the VCL is just, like you said, you get bounced around. They have to tell their story 6-7 times to different therapists.
ugh,
We've heard of therapists falling asleep during sessions.
oh my
We've heard of them
gosh,
not calling back or hanging up. It's just the stories are endless, unfortunately.
it's a shame.
Like even during the COVID lockdown, we were still continuing to communicate with our clients. Like, we can't believe you're calling us. Nobody else is available. We called these other people that were doing equine therapy and they're closed. I can't get a service dog because they're closed. And we're like, well, we're here for you. We always will be.
Ugh.
And that's
And that's
really,
probably
we really strive to keep the same wellness coordinator with the same veteran just for that reason.
right. And I'm sure that during COVID, that's probably when the veterans who were struggling needed help the most, right?
Yeah, there's a significant uptick during COVID, and then the biggest uptick was during the fall of Afghanistan.
Oh,
That was I believe that you sat through that webinar that we did, and it was just a massive
yes, I
uptick.
did.
Um, Fortunately, we were able to get everyone through it. We've had
Right.
over 3,000 clients, and knock on wood, we've not lost a single active client to suicide. So what we're doing is working.
That's
It's
awesome.
really encouraging.
Yeah, that we need to get the word out more about what you're doing because you can help every veteran all around the country wherever they are. That's really awesome.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So can you tell people how they would find you and find Stop Soldier Suicide?
Sure. It's stopsoldiersuicide.org. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a pretty sizable following on Facebook.
Mm,
Uh, we have a lot of really positive interaction, doing challenges on Facebook, immemorial challenges, or mental health awareness month challenges, or suicide prevention month challenges. So it's a large crowd and it's growing. And we have a great following there.
that's great. They can also find you on our JDog Foundation website too.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, Chuck, it was so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your treasure and share all the information about Stop Soldier Suicide. So we really appreciate it.
I really appreciate the time, Tracy, and thank you again for the JDog Foundation and your generosity.
Oh, well, we're happy to be a part of you guys. We really are. You're doing great work. Tell
Thank you very
Marjorie I
much.
said hello and I can't wait to see her soon.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.